we have a copy of what you guys did. So you can watch the video. Yes, you can. All right. So this is what I want you guys to do when it comes to our notes. So the first thing is I want us to write our names and the subject and the class in somewhere on the book. Now, most of you guys will have a little box here. So let's do that. So name, all right, my name's Care Garlic. Write your name on your book. If you need a Sharpie, I have Sharpies at the loaner. If you need a Sharpie to write on their books. All right, so you probably need a Sharpie. I'll slow them down. Not like that. On there is the subject, so that way people know what we're doing, and you can distinguish what book it is. So we are doing science. And then the other thing we're going to be writing down is the class. So you guys are year 10, and we're going to write SL, that's sports leadership. And I also want you to write down my code, so that way if it gets lost, they can give it to me as a teacher, and that also helps. So my code, sure, that's a good point. But we have to look up who teaches the SL class for science. They can also do the name. But I think it's useful to have GLK, that's my code, so that way it can get back to me as well in case anything goes missing. Okay? So that's the first thing. I want us to each have a science book so that way we can all have our notes. First thing I want us to glue is going to be on the inside cover. The investment and learning law, which you guys might have known as your lolly chart. If you've gotten that glued in, that's fine. If you haven't glued it in, I want you to glue it in. And I want us to glue it in, if you haven't done so already, onto the front cover. Front cover. Front cover. And I can also write our name on it too. All right, it's okay if you want to stick with that here. Spare copies. In case anybody gets losses. You need to glue it in, so you're going to get a glue stick either from a classmate or you're going to get it from me, from Love Chart. Huh? Oh, I just had it up. All right, next thing. Right. On the back cover, if you haven't done so already, let's glue in the water bathroom pass. So if you need to go refill your water bottle, or if you need to go to the bathroom. You can, but I want you to glue it in the back of the book first. If you've already glued it in somewhere, that's fine. I just want to glue it in, ideally in the back if you haven't glued it in. They lost their bathroom pass. After school, and I'll give it to you in your next lesson. Does that sound good? All right. Cool. Shall I keep going? Are we ready? Yes? Okay. The next thing that I'm asking up to you, I want us to glue on the first page of the front of our notebook. So these line pages. It is our checklist for this topic. You go on to the next page. One person go to the bathroom at a time. And if they're just taking a drink of water out of their water bottle, they're allowed to step outside the class and do that. If you need a drink of water, go quickly stand outside, drink the water, come back in. But you're not going to the bathroom to use the bathroom pass. Girls, please. All right. Ready for the next thing? Okay. The next thing is we need to write down our learning intention and date into the book, into our science book. So, you get it back at the end. Take your headphone out. Put it away. Vontae, over the nose. All right, so We need to make sure we keep our notes nice and tidy. So what we're going to be doing is writing down the date. This is what I want you to do for every single lesson. I don't want to have to ask you. So you come straight into class, you get your science book. I don't mind if you write it February 16th, 2022. I just need it to just be whatever the date is, however you want to write it. All right. The next thing I want us to do is write down the learning intention. Also known as the yeah. So today we are going to be exploring what is science and how we make observations and conclusions from those observations. Focus. It's also on the sideboard. It is also on the sideboard. So if you're ever late to class and you've missed writing down the learning intention, it'll always be on the sideboard as well. First. Yeah. It's important that we always write down the learning intention so we know what we are trying to accomplish today. You don't need to write down success criteria because I did it to you on the checklist. The checklist should be glued on the front line page so we can easily find it. The next thing that we do is we always start with a starter activity known as a do now. So you can write mahia or you can write do now or you can write both. No, over the nose. I know. It's annoying, but we got it. I know, when it talks, it moves. All right, so let's see what the do now is for today. Can I move it? Yes? All right, if you need the learning intention, it's on that sideboard still. So, PowerPoint as well, and I've highlighted it in yellow. So that tells us we should be writing it down. The do now, you should be answering in your book and writing down the answers. So our do now question for today is, what are some ways that we make observations in our day-to-day life? So you don't need to write down the question, you just need to write the answer to the question. So when we say observations, we are thinking about what we notice around us. So how do we make notices about what do we do? We're trying to like make observations about the world around us. What are some ways we do that? So take a moment and answer that question and write the answer in your book. So if I want to write a sentence, think it's answer the question. So how do you make like how do I know it's raining? How do I know it's raining outside? But if it, okay, how do I know it's sunny outside? Because the sun is. How do I know the sun's out? I can see it. So is that an observation? Yes. So let's write that down. One way of making observations is by looking. Observations is just stuff that you notice. Think about your senses. What are our 5 senses? Mm-hmm. Look, feel, and smell. Yes. All right. So let's think. So that's what you had a good way to summarize it. What was that? Yeah. So we make observations by using our 5 senses. Thank you. Yeah. So if you guys don't have the answer, you can write on the one that I've written. So when we think about our 5 senses, there's obviously looking, which is our sight, touch, smell, hearing, and taste. So look, we can also call that a sight. So if we were trying to make an observation about the weather, it's sunny, and we can tell it's sunny because of the sight. We see that it's sunny. What else? Can you smell sunny? I don't know if you can smell sunny. You can smell rain, like if it's just rain. Touch is a good one because you can feel the warmth on your arm. Yeah? And you can taste it. Yeah, so that is what we're referring to as an inference. So we're making assumptions based off the other senses. We'll talk about that as an idea. Okay? Taste it. Yeah, you taste the sweat, yeah. So, science is all about making observations and trying to make conclusions from those observations and trying to link things together. Right? Can I move it? Are you guys still writing? Yes? Okay. If there is anyone that needs to see it, I can always give you the notebook to look at. All right. So let's continue our lesson. Okay. All right. Scientific method and refresh that. Then we'll talk about observations and inferences. So what's the difference between those 2 things? You guys will have a chance to practice it. We'll play a game that I like to call last person standing. Let's play. Here's the thing about the shouting out and things like that. We won't get to that game unless we get the other stuff done first. So remember how I was talking about in the other lesson? What were you talking about? Oh, wait. So, if you guys remember in the other lesson, when we were having a little photo and just kind of chit-chatting, I said we're all on this walk together. and we're all trying to get to the same destination, which is to understand its material. Every time you guys talk, we slow down the walk up. Yeah? So, I would love to get to the end of our destination. I would love us to get to this stop here, where we get to play a game. But we don't get there until we do the other things first. We either do an example or we miss it from the activity altogether. So if it's a yet and we run out of time, we're not going to do it. There is no clue in this one, but I'm just saying as an example. Alright? So all of this little, slowing this down. Alright? You guys are the sports leadership group, yeah? So I can see leadership in this class. I can see good model example. I can say, hey, check that student out. That is a good example of a good student.
Why do you say that about them?
Well, you need to show me that. You guys are learning. That's what you guys have selected. You are capable of it. You have picked yourselves to be in this class to be like, I enjoy sports and I see myself. We need to trust you guys to be responsible to do that. You're talking to us. So if you're not listening to me right now, how do I know you're going to listen to me when we use our equipment? You need to have that. Okay? So, this is all going to be about observations and inferences, and then towards the end we'll start talking about measurement. Measurement is a type of observation that we use in math. But not too much. All right. On our success criteria, we are looking at number 1, which is I can make observations and distinguish them from inferences. So I don't need you guys to copy that down because it's already been given to you. That yellowish piece of paper, it says Wide World of Sports. A little typo, some of it says boiled. So we can see right here, number 1, I can make careful observations and distinguish them from inferences. There's a covered in class column and there's an I'm ready column. So at the beginning of the lesson, we take this off because this is what we're covering today. And at the end of the lesson, you can do a small little reflection and decide, do I feel like I can do that? If you can, then you can take it off. If you don't, then leave it until you feel like you can do it. What do you need? The yellow one? Right, remember, the mask goes over the nose. Right? Can we keep going? Okay. So, method. So I will pass out this image so you guys have it as well. It's a really good summary of the skills that come into the experiment. Everyone see what? And we will be putting it into our book. Yeah, we want to do this one too. All right, so you might want to trim it. You might want to put it so that way it fits, so you can move it onto a new page. I'm going to trim it. You can fit on my page as well. Here. You can glue it any way you want, but I want to glue it in. So I'm just trimming mine so that way I have a little bit of less paper. What do you need? Go ahead and take one. So you already gave me something for the Lone Star, so you only need to give me one thing. Okay? All right, so I'm going to glue mine here. All right. You want to glue it in sideways, or you can glue it in like this. So this here is an example of how to do the scientific method. So I might write down on my piece of paper, example, I'll fix, and I can do a little arrow and point to it. All right. So when I start with any sort of experiment, I need to access something called prior knowledge. So does anyone know what prior knowledge is? You already know. So we're going to explore. We will be able to ask a question. So we're going to do some background research. We're also going to think about our prior knowledge. So exploring is thinking about things like your prior knowledge. You're making a guess from your prior knowledge. After we have our prior knowledge, we need to define our hypothesis. So does anyone know what a hypothesis is? It's a prediction. So we can write down a prediction to help us remember what that hypothesis is. It's basically what you think is going to happen. And we use our prior knowledge to make a good guess. Now, are we necessarily going to be right? No. And that's okay in science. It's okay to be wrong in science. It's okay to say, I don't know in science. All right. Then what you're going to do is create an experiment to test that hypothesis. So that's just a fancy way of saying we're going to create a method. What's another word for method? Create. Steps. Instructions. So a method just helps me kind of figure out what we are doing. We need to be really clear in this method. Why do you think we need to be so clear? Well, if you get it wrong, you fail. Instructions, steps. Even if I want to repeat someone else's experiment, do I need someone else's instructions? I need them to give me good instructions so I can repeat it. Yeah. So that's why it's really important that we write a good method. All right. When you're doing that experiment, you need to reflect on it. So you need to think about, is the experiment working? Because sometimes the experiment doesn't work. And you see how it was a yes and no arrows, yeah? So if it's not working, I need to go back to the drawing board, maybe think about my hypothesis, or change my method, because maybe there's something that's not very good about it. Yeah? If it is working, I go down and I get some data, and we're going to process that data. So, what kind of things might I do for processing? Go on my laptop, what am I going to do? I'm not going to search yet. I want to collect data. So I might do some things like averaging processing my data. I might do things like graphing. So this processing here is your results. So you're going to make things like graphs and tables. When we look at those results, we're going to notice patterns, aren't we? Yes. Yeah? So results, we're looking for patterns. Patterns. And from there, I can make a conclusion from that. I know. End of the day, we're tired. All right. Last thing we do is communicate. So once I have my results, I should share them and I should explain them. Yeah? So this is known as a discussion. And it basically is a way for us to explain the results. Now I can share my results in multiple ways. I can write up a report, but I can also make a video. I can make a poster. There's lots of ways to share science. Video call, you can just have a conversation, a plural. Text somebody. No, I go back and I start over. And that's because science is always building on itself. So I keep asking more and more questions and finding more and more answers. All right? So it's important that we know these skill sets. Can I move it? If people wrote that down. Yes? All right. So, yes. All right. So let's write some definitions down on observations and inferences. I know, lots of writing. We got to start with the boring stuff and then do some more fun stuff. All right. But I'm going to write it down with you. Okay? So, let's write some definitions. The first one we're thinking about is observations. So when we are doing an experiment, we are making assumptions. We're making observations from it. So observations is making note about what we are experiencing. Making notes on what we are experiencing. With our senses. Or measurements. How would we say that? Sometimes we take measurements as well, don't we? The next word that we need to think about is inference. So inference is assumption. Has anyone heard the word assumptions before? You assume something. You're trying to you're trying to guess what the reason is behind something. So this is assumption. Trying to explain our observations. Inferences be wrong. Yes, they can. And that's why it's important for us to do experiments and to keep asking and double checking. because we might have made the wrong inference. Inferences. All right, can I move it? Okay. Let's do a really easy example with Homer Simpson. Like I said, with the observations, we are using our senses. So if we're looking at this picture, what can we observe? That the liquid is green. That Homer is there. Yeah, it's leaking from a brown can because we can see it on the ground next to it. Well, we don't know it's acid. That's an assumption. You see what I'm saying? We are making a guess about what it is. Yeah? We can see the container is brown. All right. An inference. I'll wait till you guys are done. All right. An inference then is taking those observations and trying to make a judgment from that and trying to explain something. So with that inference, we could say, oh, I think it might be an acid because acids are green or something like that. Or I think this substance may be toxic because I can see that it's destroyed the barrel. Yeah? Do I know it's toxic? No. So I need to do further experiments to figure out if it is. So that's the difference. Ask yourself, am I sure? Do I know that? Or am I assuming that? All right? So I want you guys now to practice this. So we have an image, and I want us to make some observations and some inferences on it. So I'll give everyone a copy of this. Again, glue it in your book. I'm moving on to a new page. I brought out a place. That's the last thing we're doing for today. You will in a moment. All right. Mask, please. All right. So for this next activity, we have an image, and I want you to make 3 observations and 3 inferences from this image. And we're writing this down in our notes. So we can go observations. And we're writing down inferences. And we're doing 3. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to come on the board. I want you guys to do this as your activity. So 3 observations and 3 inferences. All right. So does anyone have an observation or inference they would like to share? Yes. You see footprints. So there are footprints. There are footprints. see? Do I see the same footprints? Two different ones. So we make that as another observation. There are two different footprints. One of them ate the other one. Is that an observation or inference? That's an inference. We're guessing that. They met at the same spot. That's another good observation. We can see here that they met, didn't they? So we'll make that as an observation. They met at the same spot. What do we think might have happened when they met at that spot? They fight, so we make an inference. There was a fight. What else can we make as an inference? They're coming from different sides. Yeah, one's coming from up here, one's coming from down. They went to the same place here. Do we know if they're going in the same place? No, we're inferring that because maybe they were heading in the same direction, and we don't see these footprints end. Yeah? Maybe one of the birds died. But we're assuming they're birds. We don't know if they're birds. So that would be another inference, wouldn't it? The footprints are from birds. That's an inference. Another inference. One bird ate the other bird. Why am I assuming one bird ate the other bird? There's only one tracks on the way out. And again, that could be another observation. Yeah, the footprints tell us in the direction that they're walking that they're coming from the right-hand side. Yeah? Alright, does that help? Alright, let's do one more example. This is going to be our last man standing game, our last person standing, okay? So, what we were doing is fix the math. Oh, you guys can't see it. Oh, you guys didn't see any of the notes that I wrote on the board because I had it on freeze. Sorry about that, guys. All right. Alright, so my person stands in the game. In a moment, we will stand up, not just yet, we're going to see questions. So, we want to make, we want to practice observation of inferences. If you can make a statement on the board as observation, I want you to put your hand on your head. If you think that the statement is an inference, then put your hand on your head. Alright? So, in a moment, everyone stand up. We're going to go through some different examples, and we're going to look at this picture over here and decide if that's an observation or an inference. Alright? If you get it right, you get to keep standing. If you get it incorrect, you have to sit down. And then the last person standing, whoever's left standing, you win. You win yourself a lot. Right? Okay. Alright. So, observation inference. So observation, hands on your head. Inference, hands on your hip. So on the shoulder, not sure. Observation, because we can see in the back of the photo. Right. It's over the fire. Are we observing it or are we assuming it? It is an observation. We can see it in the photograph. That ship right there. Over the fire. Right, next one. He's boiling water for dinner. Is that an observation or an inference? Are we seeing it or are we assuming it? We are assuming it. We are assuming it. On the mountain. Is an inference. Maybe. We don't know if they're stuck. Maybe they're going on a trip. Maybe if they decided to go to the mountain. All right. If you're sitting down, you can keep playing. You're just not going to be in the running for the prize. All right. The tree does not have any leaves on it. Observation or inference? If it doesn't have any leaves, you can see that is an observation. All right. Next one. It is cold. It is cold. Observation or inference? Remember, we were just seeing the picture. We're not actually there. That's a hint. We're not actually there. We are just seeing the picture. That is an inference. We don't know that that is cold. No, I was like this all the time. I was like this. Alright, so this one here is again an inference. If we were inside this photograph or in that picture, we would be able to make an observation, we would be able to feel the cold. But because we're not there, we are assuming it is because we see that they're wearing jackets and hats. And they have a fire. Alright. Next one. We're in Vermont. Vermont is a state in the US. Do we know that or are we assuming that? We are once again assuming that. So hands and hips are fine. So we don't know if they're in Vermont. They could be Mount Everest for all we know. All right. Then we're skiing. Remember skiing. That's observation inference. And then we're skiing. I would say that is an inference. Mr. Song. I saw your hand. Yeah. So we are making an assumption again that they are skiing. And the reason why is because we see that there's skis here, but we don't know if they used it that day. Maybe they didn't. Or maybe they brought it up and they ran out of time and they didn't actually go. That's fair. All right. Observation inference. Observation or inference. The men are hungry. Observation or inference. All right. That one also is an inference. We don't know. It looks like soup. But we are assuming that it's soup. It could be hot water. It could be they're just making themselves a cup of tea. Yeah? So that's why that is an inference. All right. Last one, observation or inference. The men have backpacks with them. Observation or inference? Observation. We can see it. Alright. For those that got it right, come up and get a prize. You're still standing. We have a choice. Who doesn't want lollies? Have you eaten in the science room? Put it in your bag, put it in your pocket. You only get one if you were standing again. So I know you were out. Moving on to the next thing, put the mask back on over the nose. Come back inside. Come back inside. Make sure the mask is on. What I want you guys to do for the last couple minutes of class is just to chit chat with each other. And the two things that I'm going to talk about is first off, I want you to discuss some examples of measurements. So some examples of when you would take measurements, some examples of types of measurements, some units of measurement, any type of measurement. And then I want you guys to discuss as well why you think it's important for us to take measurements. So, chit chat with your group, those two questions. All right, what are some examples of measurement? Your height? Yeah, I know I'm pretty short. Your weight? A length of something? Yeah, wingspan? What's the measurement we take it for?
High jump.
The high jump, yeah. The long jump?
Long jump. Sprints.
Sprints? What is a really important measurement when we're like racing and stuff? Meters, the distance, yeah, but I'm thinking about something else.
The stopwatch.
The stopwatch is measuring what? Time. Time is really important, yeah? And if we want to distance time, we can figure out stuff like speed.
World record.
And then this, I think my last important is that we can make world records. We can figure out the right? Yeah? So we'll discuss this more in our next lesson. What I want you guys to do is finish all that another time. That's okay. All right. So just to summarize what we're working on today, we were exploring what is science and also having observations and conclusions from those observations, aka inferences. If you can do that, you know, number one, I'm ready. I know how to do that. We can go. All right. Now we need to find out. So people are like, I need you guys to also, because last period, spray the table, wipe them down, and then put up the chairs. All right, people that are really low carb, come to me. Get your items back. All right. So you need your sweatshirt back.
Oh, there it is. No, what did you do?
All right. What's number one? All right. You give me back your cover.
Where's number two? Number two. Number two. Ready?
All right. We are putting up the chairs. You're not getting dismissed until those chairs are put up.